Hey, it's Cara O'Donovan here. I'm an athlete with the Irish karate team and I've been doing karate for about 4 years now. And during that time, I've been lucky enough to represent Ireland at European and World Championships. I'm currently training for the Olympic qualification events, should they go ahead this year. And before that, I was a kickboxer for 20 years, and I was lucky enough to have won multiple national, European, and world titles in that sport. So, elite sport has been a huge part of my life for the last 20 odd years, which I'm showing my age now. But I've also been involved in sports that aren't well funded. So, dual careers has always been really important to me. I've studied sport. I have a degree in sports management and a master's degree in sports psychology, and I've always worked alongside being an elite athlete. So I also work as an athlete mentor. A lot of that work is based in schools. Certainly pre-pandemic it was, and I also work in the media. I'm a presenter on a sports radio show, and I do that every week. And so a typical day for me is very different. It's really varied, which is what I love. But almost every day will have a training session or two in it because, especially at this time of year, I'm preparing for Olympic qualifications. So I've got to train. So I'm usually up at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, which I don't particularly love getting up that early, but it has to be done. And I start off with a training session, and then possibly again in the evening I'll go back and do a second training session depending on the day. During the day then I might head off to the studio to prepare for my sports show. And I think I mentioned that it is a radio sports show, and that involves, preparing all the content, being up to date on what's happening in all the sports news, and kind of the news, I guess, behind the headlines as well, and the stories that are out there. I get to interview loads of interesting sports people, which I love. And then I get to, go live on air for a couple of hours every weekend to deliver the show, which is it's a real good buzz. Everything can go wrong, but you try your best to stay focused, and it's kind of like elite sport where you have to perform at a high level. There's no second chances because you can't go back in time, I guess. So that's like a typical day. On another day, I may be doing some athlete mentoring, whether that is in school or online, and that involves using skills, I guess, from my career as a sports person and how they can be transferred outside of sport and for, I guess, to help young people maybe develop those skills and understand what skills it takes to be really successful in whatever area you choose to be. It doesn't have to be as an athlete, but it can be in any particular area. A lot of the skills and steps to success are the same. So if I was to look at my most memorable moment, it's definitely competition related. And I guess it starts with a little bit of a sad story, and then then it becomes really memorable. So a few years ago, I had been very sick for quite a long time, and I didn't understand what was wrong. I was just constantly getting sicker and sicker. I was vomiting every day. I was struggling to keep weight on in some at some points, and I had no energy to train, which is quite important if you're competing at a high level. And even lumps of my hair started to fall out, all my joints were aching, and eventually I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is, it's first of all, it's a disease that there's still no cure for. It can be quite debilitating, and it affects all of your intestines and any part of your digestive system, and for me it affects every part of my body. It affects my joints, so my wrists, elbows, they can all get swollen up, and I've also been diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis as well as that. So it was a big shock to get that diagnosis, and at the time nobody really believed that I could compete at a high level again. That was pretty much going to be the end of my sports career. So long story short, a year later I managed to get a lot of, I suppose, medical assistance, and was able to manage the Crohn's disease quite well. And I got back to not only representing my country, but I also won a World Cup a year later. So that particular World Cup stands out to me as the most memorable part of my career, because It was something that I wasn't even sure I could do myself, but I was able to like work hard and believe in myself throughout that year, and got a bit of luck as well, I guess, to achieve that. If I was to pick the worst part of what I do, it's definitely the injuries. You can probably tell that I have had 5 broken noses, and I've had a lot of broken bones as well in the last year and a half. I've had surgery on my knee. I've had 2 surgeries on my ankle, and not that it's a dangerous sport, I guess, but unfortunately, just in the last few years, there is a lot of injuries. And when you're out and not able to compete for 6 months at a time, it can be pretty tough mentally to deal with. Like obviously and physically, but I think for me mentally, the hardest part is being sidelined and having to watch everybody else compete and travel. And while you're also really happy for them, it's quite a challenging time knowing that you can't be out there competing at something that you love to do. But I guess the best part then is the variety that comes with it, and it's so much fun. Like everything that I do, like to me, I think it's important to love what you do and to have as much fun. But definitely the variety is a big part. Like certainly pre-pandemic, I got to travel loads, see different countries, see different cultures. But then every day, like I think I mentioned, is different. So yeah, like the variety is great, and it's great fun, and I'd certainly advise anybody that wants to take up sport and to compete in sport if that's what they want to do. So if I was to look at the skills and the attributes that it takes to be elite in sport, I guess, or an elite athlete, there's quite a few. They won't come as any shock. I mean, it's not like there's any magic secret, in certainly in like my career, there hasn't been anything that isn't that widely available to find out, but it does take a lot of hard work. You need to be prepared to fail before you succeed, and I don't think maybe that's talked about enough. A lot of people will maybe quit right before they're about to get a breakthrough, and I just think that you need to be prepared, I guess, or expect to have some sort of knockbacks, and I don't always like to call it failure. But yeah, there will be some setbacks along the way. You don't just go and set out to be world champion and then next week you're world champion. It doesn't it doesn't work that way. So yeah, I guess hard work, bit of resilience. You need to be adaptable because in sport everything is changing all the time. Techniques and tactics that will get you to be the best in the world like a couple of years ago are not going to work again, because your competitors are always looking at ways to beat you, and then they'll figure it out. It's not that difficult, and then you need to change and adapt. So yeah, those are my, I guess, main things, like resilience, being adaptable, hard work, and obviously self-belief. That's really important, because there'll be a lot of people that will try and tell you you're not good enough, and I don't even think it's anything mean or nasty, but some people don't have that level of confidence in maybe you, so you need to be the one that believes in yourself. And I think lastly, if I was to give any advice for anyone that wants to get involved in the work that I do, maybe I think maybe I'll focus on the media aspects of it, because that one was a huge challenge for me. I'd never done anything like that before, and it's quite recent to me. And I think what you need to do is just be afraid to fall flat in your face and try new things and put yourself out there. And that takes like a lot of courage. You might get laughed at if you make mistakes, which I've made loads of already live on air. But I think in order to I guess, fulfill what it is you want to do, you have to be willing to try new things. So yeah, my advice is to be a bit courageous, be brave, just jump in the deep end and see what happens.